Here is Christopher Rivas performing Rob live on the Life Changes show here at Studio NoHo.
Hey, y'all. Like we said, I'm asked to tell this story. I prefer to tell stories based on themes. That's what I do. I share some sort of personal story, and some sort of magic is supposed to be absorbed in them and from them. I want to be clear. I don't know Rob. I didn't know Rob. I said sure. Again, to be clear, my association with the ocean is nothing but respect. I love the occasional ocean night swim. It scares me and enlivens me all at once. That's my limit. I don't desire to know the ocean's secrets, but I do acknowledge there is mad ocean secrets and wisdom, more unknown than known. As far as sharks, I love me some Shark Week. I think it's great. I think sharks are victimized and poorly misunderstood because of Jaws. We talked about that. I mean, it's their house and we're just visitors, right? Personally, I consider myself a psychonaut. The inner workings are what make me tick and go and want more. I think Rob was a psychonaut and an oceanaut. A seeker, an explorer, a passionate seeker, selfless, courageous, brave, pushing limits and boundaries and fighting for the known and the unknown. Diving into Rob's life was a deep, deep rabbit hole or shark hole. You get it. And I dove into this hole and was completely smitten. I mean, here was this man with a deep, deep legacy, a passion that touched everyone he encountered, myself included, because he was doing what he loved. A love that came through a screen, grabbed you and shook you, and let me tell you that is not easy to do. So here I am, I'm reading these articles, and I'm watching these interviews and movies, and I'm listening to his parents and the people who loved him, and I'm super inspired and motivated, and still, I don't know what story I'm going to tell. How do I honor this man? How do I honor his legacy? How do I share my truth? How does a Dominican boy from Queens who rarely goes in the ocean share his truth? How do I prove he didn't die, that he transformed, not just himself, but those around him? And the first thing I thought of was my mother, who suffered from severe depression, like real severe depression. No joke, she saw the world in black and white, not in color. I could win the lotto and she would still be sad kind of depression, a violent depression, a scary depression, I don't know what's next depression. She tried medicine for a while. She hated it. It gave her headaches. She couldn't think. She tried anything and everything. And then one day, out of nowhere, on her way home from work, she walks into a church. This is not me converting anyone to a church life. Just stay with me. She walks into this church on a Monday. She goes back on a Tuesday. She goes back on a Wednesday. She's smiling more. She's feeling better. And I start to take note. What's happening here? My mother's believing in something, and when you believe in something with all your being, incredible things begin to take place. And that's when I really started believing in the power of believing. I mean, you can believe in a glass of water, but if you cherish and love and believe in that water and know it'll keep you safe, I believe it just might keep you safe. I mean, 95% of the time, the placebo, the sugar pill is more effective than the actual medicine. Because when it comes to being ready for change, when we believe with every fiber of our being that things transform, my mother began to transform right in front of me. The world then began to transform around her. Color and love returned to her eyes. I think of this when I think of Rob because here is a man who believed in himself and everything he was fighting for with every fiber of his being. You don't have to know him to know that. It just poured off of him. This belief is currently still transforming the world for the better. The second thing I thought of is how, as a child, a brother of mine passed away when I was 13. He was hit by a car and essentially instantly brain dead. And how on that cold New York night in December, I wouldn't go into his hospital room no matter what. I just couldn't walk in there to see him. I couldn't handle it. And so for years, I keep playing that moment in my head over and over, how I should have had the courage to see him. Like maybe that would have made a difference. If I walked into the room, it would have made a difference. That's what we do in tragedy. We wonder what could have been different. We tie ourselves up to the past trying to change it, to course correct. Spoiler, it never works. We never change the past. I say this because I now know Rob would never want you to be bound to the past. The future needs you present. I say this because I now know that forgiveness is the release of all hope for a better past and an accepting of the now, a pretty incredible now. I know that life isn't easy, but also it isn't/doesn't have to be hard. I know Rob's death was a tragedy, but his memory and his legacy is a fierce celebration of living life to the fullest. I know that I was never entirely comfortable in my own skin. I know that watching Rob, he seemed to have that comfort in just being. That being brings me comfort. I know that life is precious. I know that wise man lives and a foolish man hopes. I know that sometimes our greatest gifts can be our weaknesses. I know that life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a moment to be lived. Something to be savored and let go of all at once. I know that a flower that blooms and radiates hope within the rubble, the one that breaks through the concrete, is sometimes the most powerful force there is. I know that Rob and his life and his films and his story are like that flower breaking through the rubble. I know that an ocean does not have to be perfect for us to love it. A human doesn't have to be perfect for us to love them. We all make mistakes and no such thing as perfect. I know that this life is not a tragedy. I know a life well lived like Rob's, for the benefit of all beings like Rob's, is a success. I know that an oceanaut who dies in the ocean is not a death but a transformation. We don't die. Personally, that's what I think. We leave the body and we transform, and sometimes what we transform is far beyond us. We transform a world for the better. I end with a quote by a poet named Buddy Wakefield. We were never tragedies. We were emergencies. If you call 911, tell them I'm having a fantastic time. Rob, cheers to you and your fantastic time. Thank you for your gifts and your heart. May we all remember your conservation work, your unparalleled devotion for the animals, your passion and your love for the ocean, and especially for life. Thank you. And I just said yes, because that's usually a more powerful answer than no.